Welcome to the Festival of Dangerous Ideas podcast. FODI started in 2009. It is the original disruptive festival that brings to light important conversations that push the boundaries of conventional thought. There should be nobody that's being killed at the hands of the very people who have been designated the power to protect and serve, says Alicia Garza at the end of her Festival of Dangerous Ideas 2016 talk. George Floyd's death has become yet another example of violence and prejudice experienced by African Americans and minorities across the world. Alicia Garza discusses the importance of the Black Lives Matter movement and calls for a change in politics, media, and in everyday lives to transform race relations and ensure justice and recognition for all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming along today, and I also want to pay my respects to the traditional owners of this land and their elders past and present. It's extraordinary to me that why Black Lives Matter should be considered a dangerous idea. What is a dangerous idea is terra nullius. Terra nullius, the idea that our people were not here, that this was an empty land to be claimed, and that the rights of our people would be extinguished. A dangerous idea that led to the massacre of our people, to the poisoning of water holes, to heads being decapitated and sent back to England museums in glass jars. That's a dangerous idea. It's a dangerous idea when I stand here at Circular Quay and contemplate that in the 1860s and 1870s, my great-great-grandfather, Frank Foster, was living right here in what was then called a blacks' camp. His father lay dead in the streets for days, unattended, until finally they rounded up my great-great-grandfather, his mother and his sisters, and moved them to the New South Wales-Victoria border, where he then spent the rest of his life being shuttled from mission to mission, sometimes in jail, before dying, finally making his way back home. It was a dangerous idea that said that he did not belong in the country of his ancestors. It was a dangerous idea that when Australia was federated in 1901, that we would be considered not fit to be part of this nation, that we would not be counted in the census. It was a dangerous idea in 1963, the year of my birth, when police came under cover of darkness and at gunpoint and forced Aboriginal people from their homes in Mapoon in Queensland and burnt their homes to the ground. These are the dangerous ideas that we have lived with. The ideas that have told us who we could marry, where we could live, that has denied us our citizenship and continues to deny us our rights still today. It's a dangerous idea that we are still not recognised properly in the Constitution. It's a dangerous idea that we are still the only Commonwealth country not to have a treaty with First Nations peoples. Extraordinary then that we can stand here today and say why Black Lives Matter are dangerous ideas. Especially in this week, or this past month, where we've been reminded still of how our people remain chained to the history of this country. At the history of this country, the history of frontier wars, the history of mission settlements, the history of stolen children can be linked directly to the treatment of Aboriginal children in detention in the Northern Territory. That those kids with hoods over their heads, tear-gassed and beaten, are chained to the same history, the history that was born of terra nullius. That is there also in the life of Elijah Doherty, a boy that we have all seen this week. And we've all seen the outpouring of grief and sympathy in Western Australia that has touched all of us around the country. As an Indigenous man, I've been inspired by the movements of the United States. Growing up in the 1970s in outback New South Wales, I was raised on the civil rights struggle of the US, inspired by people like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, the Black Panthers. Inspired as well by the ideas about justice, about our place in the world, about our humanity. And inspired again by a movement that has grown in the United States to touch all of us around the world, the movement that we now know as Black Lives Matter, and that today we pose as a dangerous idea. Well, tonight you're going to hear from someone, I suppose, who could be considered a dangerous woman. We're going to be blessed to hear from Alicia Garza, who will speak to us about Black Lives Matter, about the campaign, about how that has generated such a movement across the United States and brought you all here today. So thank you very much for coming, and would you please make welcome Alicia Garza.
How's everybody doing? Okay, let's try that again. I'm a call and response kind of girl. How's everybody doing? So first and foremost, I would like to acknowledge that we are on Indigenous land. And I would like to thank the folks whose land this is for having me as a guest, for stewarding this land under the worst possible conditions, and for continuing to fight for the world that we all believe can be a reality. You know, in the United States, I think we often don't talk about Indigenous people. We have fundamentally erased Indigenous peoples. Indigenous people are considered to be a part of the past, a relic of history. But it's important for us to not just remember, but to acknowledge that Indigenous people are still here. They are not relics of the past. In fact, Indigenous peoples, Indigenous nations, are the reason that we are able to be here today. And so it's important for me, as a Black American woman, to acknowledge that. It's also an honor for me to be here on this stage. 14 hours of flying. A stubborn resistance to jet lag. But in particular, I was reflecting for the last couple of weeks about the fact that often when I get asked to go places, there's always some phone calls saying, "How dare you? How dare you have that woman speaking at that venue?" Because, of course, what we're talking about is divisive. In recent months, we have been called violent. In fact, there was a petition in the United States to the White House that garnered hundreds of thousands of signatures to designate Black Lives Matter as a hate group. We have been called by shock jocks, terrorist organizations. We have been called the sowers of hate. And the thing that I just sit with each and every time is there can be nothing more hateful than the colonization that has gotten us here. There can be nothing more hateful than the genocide that has been exacted against Indigenous peoples, people of color, certainly Black people. There is a genocidal project to eliminate Black people, not just in the United States, but I would say around the world. There can be nothing more dangerous than that. So I always find it funny And I'm always shocked, like, you're really gonna let me come out here? Say a few things? It's amazing. So thank you for allowing me to do so and for showing up to hear some stuff. I've also been thinking a lot about this notion of creating a forum where dangerous ideas can be expressed. I don't consider ideas that imagine a new future, one where we all belong, one where we are all connected to one another and not isolated from each other, one where we don't fear each other, one where we don't try to collapse ourselves into some utopian sameness, but instead appreciate the diversity of who we are. For me, diversity is not just about having a bunch of different people in one place, but it is, in fact, about creating a quilt of our various experiences, histories, cultures, traditions, and acknowledging that we depend on each other to survive. That is diversity to me. It's not representation. And it shocks me, right, that that's considered to be dangerous. I don't consider those things to be dangerous. And yet there's a way in which we talk about things that are dangerous as if they are on neutral playing fields. You know, in my country, we have somebody who spews dangerous ideas all the time. Some of those ideas, I'm like, are we living on the same planet? I'm unclear. What's going on? But it's much more than entertainment, right? The ideas that he spews are ideas that have actually impacted people's lives, have decided whether or not people live or die. When we talk about things like building a wall around America, when we talk about getting rid of criminals, we are on Mexico's land. Y'all know that, right? You know, that thing happened. Stealing land and then calling it your own, you know, colonialism. But those ideas impact the quality of life of people. They impact whether or not families stay intact. They impact whether or not people live or die. They impact whether or not people are able to live free or whether they live in cages for the rest of their lives. We like to talk about dangerous ideas as if they're on a neutral playing field, and they are not. Dangerous is not just about controversy. Dangerous is about what we accept. Dangerous is about what we envision. And there are some ideas, to be quite honest with you, that belong in history books as relics, litmus tests, for us to see how far we have progressed as humanity. We are not on a neutral playing field. I cannot debate the existence of your humanity, should you exist or not. That's not dangerous, that's ludicrous. And so I hope that as I continue to give the rest of my comments tonight, that we think about that we think about the context of ideas, that it is not neutral, that some ideas become policies that then impact people's lives forever. At one point in my country, it was an idea that we were just 3/5 of a human being. No, I'm serious. It's in our Constitution. 3/5 of a human being to determine, I should say, land, property, power, voting rights. So how many of us you owned determined how active you could be in the political process. We don't exist on a neutral playing field. And ideas are never just ideas. They impact the way that we live. I spent a little bit of time trying to understand the relationship and the connection between the existence of Black people around the world, our relationship and connection to Indigenous peoples, and then, of course, here in Australia, Indigenous peoples identify as Black. I learn something every day. Oh, it's fantastic. And I see the parallels. I was reading some of your important work, Stan, today, and I was reading about how 50% of young people who are incarcerated are Indigenous. Same is true in the United States. We incarcerate more people than anywhere in the world. 2.5, 2.2, technically, million people behind bars in cages. 1 million of those people are Black. When we talk about the relationship between our communities, we can certainly talk about the ways in which we've been criminalized, the ways in which we've been deemed problems to be solved. I was so excited to see that in your work, Stan, because I say that all the time. Black people are not problems to be solved. We are people to build connections with. We are people who built the United States of America. We're not problems to be solved. But then there's also a deep relationship between us that involves a strong and powerful history and present and future of resistance. Resistance to colonialism, resistance to white supremacy. Yeah, I said it. I'm going to explain it too in a minute. Resistance to our dehumanization, and a powerful, powerful will and desire to live. We have something to teach. Our communities have endured under the worst circumstances, and yet we are still here. And not only are we still here, but we are still creating. We are still loving. We are still living lives on our own terms. And that is powerful. It is something to be celebrated. It's in our DNA. I was asked yesterday whether or not Black Lives Matter as a movement, as an organization, condoned violence. You know, the guy said, well, you know, we see that sometimes when y'all protest, it becomes violent and then there are riots. I was like, what am I supposed to say to that? It's a silly thing to say, quite honestly. Everything Black is deemed criminal. Everything associated with Black is deemed violent. Black women are seen to be violent and aggressive. Black men, similarly. But what can be more violent than the project of building a nation? I'll say it again. What can be more violent than the process of building a nation, where there are already people living, existing, building families for generations? And then a group of people comes in, they say, I like what y'all got here. This is gorgeous. I'd like it for myself. So let me see how to get rid of you. And then you kill, and you imprison, and you maim, and you steal the dignity from other human beings. You build things that you want. You build things that generate money. You make us make that money for you. You maybe move us off somewhere where we can't be seen, where we're not considered to be a problem. Out of sight, out of mind. Place us on reservations. Try to indoctrinate us with your own ideas, your own religion. And then you say, I can't imagine why they're so upset. My God, why are they so angry? They're so violent, aggressive. And then, God forbid, one of us breaks through the misery that you caused and creates a situation where we can build a platform upon which to be heard. Then we become exceptions to the rule. You're not like those other ones. You're so articulate. You speak so well. Oh, well, you don't experience that racism. You seem like you're from a nice family. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. And then you wonder why, when yet another person in our communities is murdered at the hands of the state, whether it be somebody with a badge and a gun, or whether it be somebody behind a glass window telling you that, no, you can't access services. No, you can't go to this school. No, you can't gain citizenship. No, you can't see your loved one. No, we won't build a hospital in your community. No, there will not be a grocery store. You wonder why, when there is a tragedy, emotions bubble over. What could they possibly be so upset about? We've done so many good things for you people. Now, you think I'm being facetious, but that is exactly the dynamic. Always under the surface, there is a rage that bubbles. We never get to forget the violent history that we have become a part of. We never get to forget that. When I walk down the street, I'm conscious of the fact that I'm Black. I never get to forget that. Why? Because there's always somebody who will grab their purse or cross the street, make sure I'm doing okay in the store. Just checking on you, just want to make sure you're good. And that is racism. That is white supremacy. It is the notion that anybody who is not white is a problem to be solved. And that can be done by containing. That can be done by controlling. That can also be done by force. And then mostly, it's done through ideas. Ideas are never neutral. Ideas are never, ever neutral. So no, Black Lives Matter is not a hate group. Although given the history of what it takes to build a nation, we should be applauded for how much love we have. Black Lives Matter because we all, as human beings, deserve to live with dignity. We all deserve to be able to see ourselves reflected in the communities that we are a part of. We deserve that as human beings. No, we never said that only Black lives matter. Some of you will still say, they only think Black lives matter. Doesn't matter how many people I say it to. We don't only think that Black lives matter, but we do call the contradiction. The contradiction that all lives should matter, but they don't. And that all lives cannot matter until all lives actually matter in practice. And practice doesn't just mean representation. You don't get to feel better because you're around Black people, because you have a Black friend or a Black neighbor that's really nice to you. It's not justice. What it means for Black lives to matter is to make sure that there are equitable distribution of resources. I'm gonna say that again. What it means to make sure that Black lives matter means to ensure that there is an equitable distribution of resources. If we were to live that principle, that means that some of you would have to give some stuff up. Yeah. What it means for Black lives to matter is to change policy, practice, procedure that creates a differential between life outcomes. So, the fact that you have the highest suicide rate in Black communities in this country is not just about there being a lot of depression. It is about people not having what they need. Plain and simple. And so to make Black lives matter, you have to make sure people have what they need. And that might mean that you don't get what you want. It's a radical idea. I can see. Some of y'all are like, what you mean now? You done went a little too far. White supremacy, racism is not about people being mean to each other. You can uphold systems of racism and be a really nice person. You can love your grandkids, you can love your community, and you can still uphold racist systems. Shocking, but it shouldn't be. There is a way in which our laws, our customs, the way that we treat each other is set up to benefit white people. Some of those white people are real nice white people. But your benefit means somebody else's lack or loss. So it's not just enough to be inspired by our organizing. It means that you too have to get organized. To defect from a system that says that you are somehow better than others, that you somehow deserve more than other people. Then and only then will we be able to get closer to a world where all lives matter, if that's really what you want. Now, in the United States, inside of Black Lives Matter, the network, we say, none of us are free until all of us are free. So what that means is, if we want to live up to the principles of justice and fairness and equality, equity, humanity, dignity, then it means we have to fight like hell so that everybody has it. There should be no more people dying in the Mediterranean. There should be no more people being denied access to the things that they need because they were not born here. There should be no more people suffering on their own land. And certainly there should be nobody that is being killed at the hands of the very people who have been designated the power, supposedly to protect and serve. If we are not outraged by the violence that our people experience every single day, then we are not serious about our values. If we can be outraged at somebody breaking a window, but not be outraged at seeing images of 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 14-year-olds with hoods being tortured, something is very sick in our somas. We need a complete rebooting. And if we commit to that, I believe that we can live in a world where all lives actually do matter. Thank you.
Thank you, sister.
This session was recorded live at the Sydney Opera House and presented by the Sydney Opera House and the Ethics Centre. The Ethics Centre delivers programs and experiences designed to bring ethics to the centre of our life. We offer free counselling for individuals, consulting, leadership and development services. As a non-profit charity, we rely heavily on donations to continue our work, which can be made via our website. Thank you.